Well, good morning, and our guest this morning is, on Our Stories, is Craig Mandernach. And Craig has a bit of an unusual story that we'll be delving into this morning. Took place when he was in high school, and involves his basketball team and their relationship with his mother. Craig, you lived in Sac City, Iowa.
Yes.
Which is, you said between?
Fort Dodge and Sioux City,
Yeah.
Northwest Iowa.
Okay. And that you had, your school, high school had about 300 students at the time?
Yeah, yeah. Our class had 65.
65, okay. Now your story involves the basketball team, and how many players did your team?
Well, the varsity had 12
Okay.
players.
All right. I think another point of context for people is that the team and your mom had a pretty close relationship, and why don't you explain that a little bit, how your entire basketball team and your mom would be so well acquainted?
Well, the 12 members on the varsity, seven of us were seniors. We had all grown up together. I had a birthday a month or so before, and there were more there, but the 7 on the basketball team were at our house overnight for a birthday party, and that was not uncommon. We did stuff in each other's homes, and so everybody knew, especially the seniors. But my mother had taught Sunday school, and so several of the younger members on the varsity had been in her Sunday school class. So they knew her as we knew
Right.
all the other parents.
Yeah. So it's state tournament time for the basketball teams, and your team has made it into, what, the final 8?
Yeah, the final 8. We were, well, not only a small school, but we were a short team. And so we had one player that was over 6 feet tall, and the starting 5 were 5'7", 5'8", 5'10", and 6'2" or 3". And we did full court press the entire game unless we were really ahead. And so that was our standard thing to do, and often the other team didn't get to the other end because somebody stole the ball from them.
Sure. So a few days before you're supposed to go to the tournament, your mom's taken to the hospital.
Yes, I was on a date on Saturday night, and when I came home, my parents were gone. My dad had taken her to the local hospital. She had a gallbladder attack that was, fairly serious. It was, as far as I know, it was the first one she had had. So she didn't have a history of that or any other medical history. She was 53.
So I think you told me she went in like on Saturday night, and then on either Sunday or Monday they operated on her?
Yes, and she was, as was the standard thing, you didn't get out of the hospital as quickly as you do now.
Yeah.
And so she was recovering from surgery, and was fine. I had visited her in the hospital, and the team had breakfast together in town at one of the local restaurants, and then we stopped at the hospital and walked to, she was on the first floor, walked to the window, and she waved to us, and we waved at her, and we wound up with a letter she had written to the basketball team.
Um, So what was the nature of her letter?
Well, she just, it was one of encouragement, and she
Yeah.
just said, I know, enjoy your time. I know this, you've worked hard to earn this opportunity, and, do your best.
Sure.
And it was that kind of
Right.
note.
Sort of inspirational
Yeah,
kind of thing,
yeah.
right? Yeah. So that was on Wednesday, and you drive the 5 hours to Iowa City?
Yeah, normally the state tournament was held in Des Moines, but there was a conflict that year, so we drove 5 hours
Yeah.
to Iowa City and played in the old field house at Iowa City.
Yeah. But your first game was going to be Thursday night, right?
Thursday night, yeah.
Okay. That gets interrupted because you have some visitors on Thursday morning.
Thursday morning, there was a knock on our door, and at 7 o'clock I got up and opened the door, and there was the basketball coach and the principal and somebody I didn't know who was a pastor, and they told me that my mother had died the night before.
That must have been quite a shock.
Yeah, and they said my Uncle Vern was driving down from Sac City, and I don't know what, he got there,
Yeah.
9 o'clock or so. I had breakfast with the team, and then we left to drive back to Sac City and got home like at 5 in the afternoon. So it was quite a change from what everyone's expectation was.
So obviously you're not at the Thursday night game.
Right.
Yeah.
Thursday night, my uncle, who I had, who had driven me back, said, well, you can imagine what was going on at our house.
Sure, yeah.
People were there, and he said, if you want to watch the game, come to my house. So my girlfriend and I went to his house and watched
Yeah.
the basketball game, and our team won.
Mm. So now you're still going to be in the tournament playing.
Yep.
Your team is anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. And when's the next game?
The next game is Friday night.
Right.
The way it worked then, there were 8 teams in the tournament, and the first round losers went home. And the 4 winning teams then played on Friday, and then on Saturday, the winners of the Friday games, the winners played the winners, and the losers played the losers. So at the end of the weekend on Saturday night, you knew who the first, second, third, and fourth teams were in the tournament.
Right. So did you go back to the tournament for Friday night, or?
No, I didn't go back until Saturday. Well, because I was going home on Thursday. Friday we were, making funeral arrangements, and Saturday, quite a number of people were driving down to Iowa City for the final game. They had tickets for that, and they right away said,
Yeah. So your team won then, and was going to be
No, our team won on Thursday,
Yeah.
and then we lost both of the final 2 games. They were very close games, and so we wound up being fourth in the state, and the team that won everything was a smaller school than we were.
Wow.
They were very good.
Yeah. So you got back for the game on Saturday but lost. Then came back home again.
Yeah, you stayed overnight, so we drove home to Sac City on Sunday,
Yeah.
Sunday morning, and got back early afternoon, and were greeted,
Yeah.
5 or 10 miles outside of town with everyone escorting us back, and they had a welcome in the high school. That was how Sunday went.
But let's go back for just a minute here now, because your mom went in with a gallbladder issue. And, I mean, that was resolved in terms of her gallbladder was removed.
Yeah.
So what caused her death then?
She, she was recovering, and she was expecting, to go home like on Thursday. And on Wednesday night, my dad was out visiting her at the hospital. He had stepped out of the room, and our family doctor who had done the surgery was doing his evening rounds. And so he was in the hospital when suddenly one of the nurses, said, there was an emergency, and they paged him, and, he stepped from several doors away into the room and was dealing with an emergency situation where she had had a sudden failure of her blood pressure, and her blood pressure essentially went to zero. And I had looked up, the death certificate and stuff later, and I don't, remember the details of the names, but that's basically what happened. She went from being normal to just having no.
Yeah. But that wasn't something that she'd had previous.
No, she was really quite healthy, and so she didn't have any medical issues. She was 53.
So Monday is the funeral, and your entire team comes to the funeral.
Yeah, and many of the classmates came.
Yeah.
So it was, and my mother's from a big family, and so, there was a church full of people, and it's a small town, so they filled the church.
But with the relationship that she had with the guys on the team and all, and your classmates, why it was kind of that's sort of normal. You would expect.
Yeah.
Turnout. So.
Most everybody was pretty much in shock with it.
Yeah. Well, and that must have made some of those senior events that followed through in the spring kind of bittersweet for you.
Yeah, and because 2 months later, almost to the day, 2 months later, we were graduating.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Appreciate your sharing it.
Thank you. Yeah, it was, it's a long time ago now, I was, thinking about that, that's 61 years ago.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. It's not like yesterday.
No.
So. Okay. Well, thanks again.
Okay.
Yeah.